What's up, guys? It's Casual King MMA back to another video. And sorry, it's been a while. It's been almost over 2 weeks, and the reason for that is I just have not I have lost the UFC itch. I've lost the bug. There's something that's missing, and I think the last two cards. This fight night card was just. Vittoria in the main event in 2025. Who cares? But I think the Alex Pereira Ankalaev pay-per-view was more painful for me. First off, seeing Big Onk with the belt is a cursed image. That should be CGI. The image on your left being a real thing is not okay. It's just not okay. We live in the worst timeline. The other issue is ESPN. I buy every pay-per-view. I watch every fight, every card. I could not buy this pay-per-view. I spent 30 minutes trying to buy the pay-per-view. I was unable to because ESPN is a bad service. I was unable to buy the pay-per-view. It's $80 UFC don't make. And if somebody as hardcore as me is unable to buy the pay-per-view and has to use other means to watch it, imagine how many people are doing this. Imagine how many people are doing this. ESPN's only job is to be a format, is to be a service for us to watch UFC cards. The UFC does everything themselves. They have their own film crews, they have everything. All ESPN does is it's the service you pay for to watch the UFC, and they are unable to even manage that small, insignificant aspect of their job. I do not think the ESPN is the future. It is not the future. It cannot be. 7 years of this. 7 years of ESPN has only made the sport get worse and worse and worse. And I think there's three main reasons for that. First of all, ESPN is a bad service. I've had so many problems with ESPN trying to watch cards. We're talking about shoddy service. We're talking about choppy. We're talking about bad graphics, not 1080p. We're just talking about a bad technology. ESPN has so many sports, they don't care. They're comfortable where they're at. They are fine letting the UFC walk because they feel like they have everything under control. They just told MLB they don't want their deal. They're going to regret that. People are going to keep moving away. What does ESPN have anymore? What does it have that's unique? You can watch sports on other channels. ESPN has a brand, and that brand is getting worse and worse. The other issue with the ESPN brand, and why I didn't like the UFC with ESPN in the first place, was that the ESPN brand and the ESPN sports that they have are bigger than the UFC. There's a lot of times where I'm going through ESPN trying to find an old fight, and I simply cannot because ESPN has other sports they value higher than the UFC. The UFC need to be with a company that values them as the breadwinner, as the man in the relationship, and ESPN is not that. The other two reasons, second reason, ESPN has controlled the pay-per-view prices. Pay-per-view prices have increased from $59.99 to $80, and they're going to keep increasing as ESPN has it. ESPN hasn't been happy with the amount of pay-per-view buys, and instead of looking at themselves and realizing, point three, that we have too many cards, so there's not enough talent to put on the good cards, and realizing that you're a bad service that people don't want to watch through. Why would you pay $80 to watch a pay-per-view, watch 5 fights on ESPN, when you can stream it on other sites for free? The only difference is ESPN has a better quality and the streams are a little bit more stable, but not $80 better. Not anywhere close. And rumors have been speculating that Dana and the UFC are looking to have a deal with Netflix. This timing. ESPN's just completely dropping the ball and destroying the Alex Pereira pay-per-view could not have happened at a worse time for ESPN. The UFC is currently renegotiating their deal with ESPN, and ESPN has the single negotiation rights at this time until the deal ends in 2026. This changes everything. This gives UFC lawyers a way to be able to get themselves out of the ESPN deal earlier, or more importantly, just not sign with ESPN in the first place. And rumblings have been saying that the place that the UFC want to go is Netflix. I like it a lot. Netflix has been spending a lot of money trying to become more of a sporting brand. For those who watch the NFL, they paid so much money to get the rights for the Christmas games, December, and for the Logan Paul Mike Tyson fight. The interesting thing is the viewership was amazing for events. The streaming was a little rough. Netflix is still figuring it out. And the other big problem was that the products, the Mike Tyson fight sucked. Those NFL games sucked. The UFC is a very promising partner for Netflix. It's a very promising partner. You're guaranteeing yourself a huge chunk of live action sports. Not only that, the UFC is a very loyal fan base. The people who watch UFC will follow UFC anywhere, will happily subscribe to Netflix. And if you got the Netflix subscription anyways, plenty of good shows. Go watch Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Banger. There's options for you. It's better. I don't get any value by having ESPN. I get value by having Netflix on top of that. The other thing is with those issues with Netflix, especially the Tyson fight, the reason for that is 108 million people were currently watching that fight. UFC will never reach those numbers. And honestly, it's kind of good that Netflix had that bad situation happen out of the gate, as nothing could be worse than that, and it will prepare them for the future. Finally, this gets into something that I'm getting hopeful for. I'm getting a little too hopeful for. I'm knocking on wood right now. I don't want to curse this. The UFC really want to deal with Netflix. Netflix really likes the UFC product. The UFC expanding into combat sports such as boxing, their partnership with the WWE and TKO makes Netflix the combat sports hub, which is really good. There's one other thing, one juicy bit of information that could save the UFC and really turn it into the sport it has the potential to be. Netflix does not believe in the pay-per-view model. And that is the most beautiful thing I have ever read in my entire life. The pay-per-view model cannot work long term. It cannot. You cannot have people paying $80 12 times a year to watch these pay-per-views. It's too much money, and the product's not good to illegally stream it. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Not illegally stream, but it's not good enough. The difference in quality is not big enough for you to pay $80. What Netflix offers is a subscription model, an ability to have a subscription. I don't know if it will be combined with the Netflix shows. I don't know if it will be its own sporting program that you have to pay for. But a subscription basis where you get to watch all the fights for free. Maybe there's a little fee for the pay-per-view, but that idea, saving fans money and making it so that more people watch. If these fights are cheaper, all that Netflix has to do is, here's a huge fight. Alex Pereira's next fight, Conor McGregor's return. You get a lot of people subscribing to Netflix. They stay with Netflix. They stay watching UFC. Everyone benefits. I think this whole subscription model idea is a completely separate video that I will be uploading at the end of this week. That was bad timing. Just pretend you didn't see that. Just pretend I did the Men in Black thing, wiped your mind. You didn't see that. You don't know how I edit these videos. It's time. Ditch the pay-per-view model. I'll explain more later this week about why it's a dying model, why it doesn't work. You ditch that model. The sport, the direction of the sport is limitless. It costs thousands of dollars to be a UFC fan. You lower the price to be a UFC fan to $200, $300, everyone will be a UFC fan. Hope you guys appreciate the rant. Peace, guys.